It's time to make some more beef jerky, and I'm going to be doing it the easy way in the oven today, and we're also going to be flavoring it with teriyaki sauce that's kicked up a bit. So before we get to our teriyaki marinade, which is going to have a little bit of a kick to it, and you can leave that kick out and just make straight sweet teriyaki marinade with this, but I want to kick it up a bit. But before we get to that, we got to get our beef ready. And what we're working with here are 2 top round steaks. You'll see these marketed as London Broil. It's a total of about 3 pounds between these two. And all I'm going to do is trim up a little bit of the fat on the outside here. So we're just going to go along, get this little layer of fat out of there. There's not a whole lot on here to worry about. And the reason I like to get rid of the fat is the same reason you get rid of the fat most of the time when you're making beef jerky is fat is one of the first things to spoil and make it go rancid. But even though I don't make my jerky for long-term storage, I make it and keep it in the refrigerator and it's gone in a few days, I still like to get rid of that fat to give it just that extra amount of time so nothing goes bad. If you want to leave the fat, you can. There's no problem with it, but I would remove any of the tough sort of fat and silver skin. So over here, there's just a little bit. Just want to get off here. Not too much. Let's check this other one here. You can see there's this sort of layer along the edge here, and I'm going to use a bigger knife for this just to get a straighter cut. I'm going to try and lose as little meat as possible. You will lose a little. And this side over here, just this little strip I think is all I'm going to need to deal with. Now these 2 pieces of top round are going to go in the freezer for about 30 minutes. That helps them firm up so they're easier to slice to get those more precise slices that we want for jerky. So we're going to get those in the freezer and I'll see you back here in a few minutes when we get our marinade going. So the marinade for this today starts with a basic teriyaki marinade that I like to make. If you don't want to make this from scratch, just get a jar of teriyaki sauce. You can use that. You can even kick it up the way I'm going to kick it up or just leave it plain teriyaki. We're starting with ½ cup of soy sauce. We're going to add ¼ cup of plain water, 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, ¼ cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, and 2 teaspoons of minced fresh ginger. This is really ground down too. It's very smooth. Now I'm going to whisk this up, get it all mixed together before I add the ingredient which is going to kick it up for me. But again, if you want it just straight teriyaki, you can go with this. Let's just get a little taste of this first. Very nice. Has a good sweetness for this teriyaki. That's the way I like it. So to this, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of Sriracha sauce. This is going to give me that heat that I want. 1, 2, 3. Gonna mix this up again. Let's give this another taste with a fresh spoon. Yes, nice little kick there. Not overpoweringly hot, just enough, kind of like if you added a lot more red pepper flakes. But with the teriyaki here, I really like that sriracha. Works really well. All right, we're gonna set this aside, and as soon as our top round is ready, we're gonna slice that up and get it into this marinade. So here's 1 piece of our top round. The other one is in the refrigerator now to stay chilled after that 30-minute session in the freezer. And I'm just going to start slicing this, maybe about a ¼ inch thick, a little less. That's about the size that I like it. And because you've had it in the freezer, you are going to get a little bit of resistance to the knife. So do make sure your knife is sharp. It does help. Start setting those pieces aside. Now when you're cutting this for beef jerky, you can cut across the grain, with the grain, whichever you choose. With the grain will give you a little bit more of a pull, sort of that jerky pull. Across the grain is going to be a little more tender. You're going for roughly the same size, but honestly, it's all going to be jerky. It's going to be great. And I prefer my jerky to be not quite as dried as some other people like theirs. I still like there to be a little bit of that sort of beefy moisture to it, so I don't dry it too much. That's why I don't dry it for long-term preservation. It usually gets eaten within a couple days in the refrigerator anyway. I'm gonna get the rest of it sliced up, and then we're gonna get it in the marinade. So our marinade's been sitting for a bit. I just wanna give it a whisk before we add our top round pieces to it. Make sure everybody's mixed up in here still. Now we're just gonna add our beef. Get everybody in here. And I like to just get in here with my hands, with the gloves, and mix it all up. Make sure everybody gets coated. You can get the teriyaki smell, but you can also get that sriracha smell coming off this. All right, that's looking good. This is now gonna go in the refrigerator in some Ziploc bags overnight. I'm gonna turn it probably in about 6 or 7 hours, and if I go to the refrigerator, I'll turn it some more. Just make sure everybody gets coated on every side here. And then tomorrow, we're gonna make some of our kicked up teriyaki beef jerky in the oven. So our top round slices have been marinating in that kicked up teriyaki marinade overnight, and now I've got some trays with racks on them. You don't have to have racks like this, but if you're doing it on a flat surface, you may want to turn the jerky. Even if it's on a rack, sometimes it's a good idea to turn the jerky. I generally don't worry about that. Go ahead and get our jerky pieces on here. Not even sure how many racks I'm going to be using today, but I've got plenty. Now, if the jerky pieces that you're putting on a rack are really soaking with marinade, you may want to pat them with a paper towel, just sort of dry them off a little bit. All the excess moisture does at this point is slow the drying process. And you want to try and give them a little bit of space here, but honestly, the meat's going to start shrinking. It's going to develop its own space. So if they touch a little bit, it's not going to hurt anything. You know, these little bits that are just here, any of those loose little pieces, just fit them in. I can fit one more skinny piece in here. Close enough. All right, so this rack is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer the rest of the jerky pieces onto another rack, and then we'll be getting them in the oven. All right, I have my oven set at 160 degrees. If your oven doesn't go that low, maybe it goes to 170, that should work too. I'm just gonna get my jerky pieces in here. All right, we're gonna go ahead and close our oven up, and we're gonna let these go. We're gonna not check them for 2 hours. Generally, it's gonna take somewhere around 4 to 6 hours with jerky like this, I've found, usually in the 4 to 5 hour range. But we'll check these in about 2 hours. All right, we've been going just about 2 hours now. Let's get a look at some of this jerky. Ah, there we go. Starting to get that jerky look to it, that color, but you can see it's still very flexible here. I don't like mine too dry, but that's not dry enough. And at 2 hours, I knew that wasn't gonna be the case, but we wanna look at it, and it is looking good. Starting to get everything shrinking up. So we're gonna close this up. We're gonna check it again in another 2 hours. All right, we've been going 4 hours here. Let's check our jerky. Looking good. Still looks a little flexible to me. Let me see here. You can see there, still a little too much flex. So I'm gonna let this go another hour. I think another hour is gonna be just perfect for this. So let's close it up and let it finish. Well, here we go, our finished teriyaki beef jerky that's got that kicked up marinade with the Sriracha Hot Sauce in it. The color is always fantastic when you make beef jerky. It gets that super dark color. I just love that. Now, someone had asked a question in the comments section of one of my other beef jerky videos and asked, how much does it actually yield? If you start with X amount of beef, how much in weight do you get from jerky? And I'd never checked. Well, today I checked. I started with almost 3 pounds of top round on the dot, and this is 1.85 pounds of beef jerky. So not quite half reduction. And that's a pretty good yield when you consider what you would pay for almost 2 pounds of top quality beef jerky at the store. Both of those top rounds together that were on sale cost about $7. So for what it costs with the beef and the marinade, this is a great deal. Another comment that comes up a lot of times is, well, that's not real beef jerky if you make it in the oven. Of course it is. There are many ways to make beef jerky. You can make it in a smoker. You can make it in an oven. You can make it in a dehydrator. People used to just lay it out on rocks in the sun or hang it in the open air. And honestly, if you don't have any other method but the oven to use to make beef jerky, this is a perfect way to make it. And again, I make this to the doneness that I like. This took right on the dot 5 hours. I don't like my beef jerky too dry. I don't make it for long-term preservation. I don't add any preservatives. This will go in the refrigerator and I guarantee you it'll be gone in the next 2 days. So if you're doing it for long-term preservation, that's an entirely different process that you're gonna take it to be a lot drier. You're gonna lose a lot more weight then. You're still gonna have the same number of pieces, but you're gonna lose that weight because more moisture is drawn out. I like there to be a little bit of moisture left in the beef jerky when I have it. And when the beef jerky turns out looking this good, all I can say is it's time to taste. So let's go with just a regular piece here. That's just about the floppiness that I like, just like that. It has some bend, it starts to break, the meat fibers start to snap a bit, but it doesn't snap with an audible sound like that. So let's see. Really good bite on that. If you saw when I was taking the bite, nice pull. You definitely get hit first with that teriyaki and then with a hint of the sriracha. Now, if you don't want the sriracha in there, leave it out, make it straight beef jerky. If you want it sweeter, add honey, maybe a tablespoon or 2 of honey, or 2 or 3 more tablespoons of brown sugar to that marinade. Also, if you don't want to make your own teriyaki marinade, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, you can just use a bottled teriyaki marinade. However, if it's one of those thicker ones, they thicker consistency, almost like a sauce, thin it out with a 1/4 cup of water. That way you'll get that marinade consistency, which is going to allow it to sort of flow over the meat a little bit better. I got to tell you though, I really like the homemade marinade. People have asked me, how long will this last in the refrigerator? I don't know. It's never lasted more than a week because it's always gone. I imagine it would last at least a week in the refrigerator. I just put it in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator, reach in, grab some when I want. I know people who freeze this and then will take out pieces from the freezer, thaw them and eat them. So you could make this in much larger batches and store it that way in the freezer and then thaw out small batches to be eaten when you're hungry. So if you like teriyaki beef jerky, this is a simple way to make it. You could do it in a smoker outside if you want to, or in a dehydrator, but if an oven is all you've got, there's no problem with using the oven. You can get great results, great flavor with marinade. It's just terrific beef jerky all around. I love this stuff.